Thank you for joining me. I've got another behind the scenes for you today. I know there's a lot of people who really enjoyed the last one. I've had a lot of comments from people as well asking more about the content creation side of things. So that's what largely today is going to be about, another behind the scenes. What we're actually doing today is I need to get some footage for the Alienware Area 51M review, part 3. So we need to get some footage of the Alien FX and the RGB LED lighting. So you can join me today for doing that, and I'll try and put as many tips and tricks in there as I can for you as we go along the way. I'll just throw them in there, and nothing scripted, nothing heavy, nothing formal, just you and me, no heavy editing. I have got another camera set up here, so I should be able to cut to a few close-ups for you. I'm just using a Logitech C920 here. Nothing fantastic, but that's the best I can do for you. You're on the iPad, main camera here, and so we've got a few things going on. Should be a good one. And in the meantime, today I had a great day today actually. It was, sun was shining, birds were singing outside. We like to feed the birds every day. And I couldn't resist, I got out there with the camera. So it looks like I'm out of tea. And if you know me, I've got to have tea. So get yourself a beverage as well. I'm going to go and make a new brew. And in the meantime, I'll throw in a segment that I put together earlier on this afternoon from some footage I've got in the garden. Beautiful birds in the garden. So enjoy that, and I'll see you back here in about 30 seconds. The tea that I just made is already nearly half gone. Lesson number 1, continuity, right? Watch out for stuff like that, yeah? Those observant of you will have noticed that I said I'll be back in 30 seconds. Enjoy that, and I'll see you back here in about 30 seconds. Typically what I would do is I would actually remove the battery from the clock. The clock's actually there. It doesn't have to be there. I purposely have the clock in shot in some scenes because it allows me to deliver the sequence of time, yeah? And it can create the effect where if I have to take 3 or 4 different shots from different angles, they can be spaced sometimes days apart. And so it's important that I watch out for continuity errors, and I make sure that I set the clock to where it needs to be, put it on the wall, and then you give the viewer the impression of just one seamless, if it's a 30-minute video, then you would want, anything around there that can represent time to actually represent the correct time as it would sequence through that 30-minute period. So that's the first thing to watch out for, and things like leaving pots around, yeah? So here's something here as a good example where in my hour that I've been away, when I said I'll be 30 seconds making a cup of tea, total distraction. I go over to the house to make my tea. I'm saying goodnight to my son. I'm chatting to my wife. She's just got home from work, and have myself a Muller Bliss Corner lemon fruit compote that I enjoyed. So watch out for stuff like that. When they see the first part and there's nothing on the desk, they come back and there's something suddenly on the desk. You'll be surprised how subliminally people pick up on that very, very quickly. And I used to follow a great YouTube channel actually. It was something to do with like classic film errors, and it would show all of the errors in each film in a sequence. It's quite interesting, and it's like, wow, how did someone spot that? But they do. And little secret, my little sister, she was a floor manager in Teddington Studios in London, film studios. And in fact, a few projects that she was involved in, one of her jobs was continuity. So I learned quite a lot about that from her. It's a very, very tricky thing. So that's lesson number 1. Watch out for stuff like that, but you can control it. And as I say, you can actually use that to your advantage in terms of getting some sort of a continuous timeline representation by having clocks on the wall purposely set to certain times. things like that. So just watch out for stuff like that. I also have problems where women don't have the same problem, but for example, when I'm doing quite a big project that I know is gonna, I'm gonna have to film over several days, I have to be careful about things like even my stubble length. I have to I've got like a bit of a ritual when I'm doing a sort of video. I generally have a bath before I start shooting, and it means that I can have a shave and I can control exactly my stubble length, because again, that's an issue with continuity. You can come back from a shot, and again, I could be doing that shot 3 days later, and so I need to make sure that I had a shave pretty much the same amount of time before doing the shoot, to make sure it's consistent. So there's a lot to think about, and there's a lot that can catch you out. I mean, of course, it depends what your level of attention to detail is, but you'll be surprised in terms of the viewers. And it's not like it's costing you anything to get it right. It's just a little bit of thought, a little bit of planning. If you want, make a list of things to look out for. I've done that before. Sometimes I take a photo of the setup, and so I've even got things like markers on the floor. I'll use different coloured masking tape, electrical tape. So for example, red tape, if I've got a red cross on the floor, that's where I have a camera positioned. If I have a black cross on the floor, that's why I have a light pole positioned, and things like this. And I can maintain them on my floor, and if I need to return to a shot where I've got a consistent sort of frame, then as long as it's roughly within frame, again, part of that continuity is if you mark your positions out on the floor, you can get your set back to how you wanted it. And again, you can take a photo just with your iPad or something, or iPhone, or smartphone, sorry, nothing to do with Apple. But yeah, take a picture of actually how it looks, and then you can just sort of reposition that. And sometimes I'll actually pull up the video clip on the screen in the edit, and I'll just have it sitting there while I position the camera to get look in the same frame. So there's a lot of bits and pieces in there to think about, but they're all quite important even before you begin, right? And get an idea of some of the things that could change. I mentioned in the last behind the scenes video about things like lighting. Yeah, I touched on a continuity with the lighting, where I have an issue with the blinds here, and so during the day, I have the sun hitting in, and the problem it causes is more to do with things like white balance, where if you've got that yellowy colour of the sun, particularly in certain times of the day, particularly like in sunset time, as it gets later in the day, the colour temperature changes of the light, and so you'll get more of a yellowier look rather than a bluier look, and things like this. And so a lot of the reason why a lot of people actually in the comments, they catch me out with things like, they always see the time and it's like 3:30 in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning when I'm making my movies. And part of the reason of that is because I can wholeheartedly, 100%, I can control the light. I haven't got that sort of light coming in through the blinds, and so it's easier to control the situation if I have no light coming in. And at night time you don't get as many distractions, and which is another thing in terms of preparation. You need to make sure you've got your, first, again, do a checklist if you have to. Phone's on silent, yeah, basic stuff like that. Making sure if you've got something rocking on your computer, your speakers are turned off. So obviously when you've been doing it a while, you sort of just subconsciously think about these things. But if you're starting out, these are some of the things might need to sort of think about making a list. And I've got a whole formal set of videos that I've got planned to come up, which will be easy for you, that you'll just be able to follow step by step, and you'll know to start to finish. So we will be getting into the video shoot. But one other thing I wanted to mention was last week's, or the last behind the scenes, had a bit of an issue with the audio. And the reason being is that usually I would like to use my radio mic, which I'm on now, and which has a transmitter and a receiver. And typically the receiver would be mounted on the hot shoe of the main A camera, the EX1, and then which receives the audio from my transmitter, and I'll record the audio on there. Now on the last behind the scenes, and of course this one as well, you're on the iPad, right? And so what I did last time, again, little secret, because no one, this is the way I did it. I recorded the video on the iPad, and I recorded the audio on the Sony. And the reason I did that was because it was an issue trying to get the audio into the iPad to record it on the iPad, right? It's great if you want to just use the built-in iPad microphone, but never do that. Definitely never do that. So anyway, what I did is I went into the menu of the Sony EX1 and I turned off the tally light, which is the red record light, so that in the last behind the scenes, people didn't know that it was actually recording the entire time. Yeah, and I didn't want people to know it was recording the entire time. And so I just turned the record light off in the menu. And so what it allowed me to do is record the audio in this for the entire time. You know, when I'm picking it up and I'm doing this and I'm showing it around, it was actually recording just my audio. Now, what I found is that the iPad records in 30p, which is essentially 30 frames a second. And the Sony EX1 records in the standard 30p, but it's what they call drop frame, NTSC drop frame, which is 29.97 frames per second. Now, when I pulled in the iPad footage into the edit, what I noticed is that as far as Premiere Pro, which is the software that I use, Adobe Premiere Pro, when I pulled it into the software, it tells you, interprets the footage in terms of what the frame rate is, what the bit rate is, and the resolution, stuff like this. And I noticed the iPad footage, it said 29.99 frames per second. So I thought, oh, here we go, it's going to be an issue. Sure enough, 17 minutes long, I think it is, the last behind the scenes. And when it got to about the end, when I checked the synchronization of the speech, it was about 1.2 seconds out, just literally from having the difference of the 29.97 frames per second on the Sony EX1 versus the 29.99 frames a second that you're running on, meant that over that 17-minute period, like when you watch it at the end, it was really out of sync. So I had to do a whole load of effects, a whole load of time remapping, and nasty business. And of course, what that also does is ramp up the rendering. When you're adding complex filters and complex sort of effects like time remapping, particularly with audio, where it then will automatically maintain the pitch of the audio despite you changing the speed, it's a lot of processing power. So that behind the scenes video, it actually took quite a bit to render it at the end. So there's all these things, you know, if you need to watch your workflow, if you end up doing that too much, you're going to cost yourself a lot of time and money, where you're spending more time rendering than you need to be, because you're adding in effects and filters where you don't need to be. So it's that whole, you know, you can polish a turd, but, you know, it's still a turd, right? So in order to combat that, what I did today is I made up a custom lead. I couldn't find one. I've got a bunch of you know, splitter leads where you plug them into the iPad headphone jack, and it splits off headphone socket and mic socket. But none of them seem to work because I guess it's because Apple does its usual stupid non-proprietary or proprietary things that they do, so it's not the same as everything else. So I had to actually solder up a custom cable using a 4-pole 3.5mm jack, which goes into the iPad socket, and branch that off myself with the actual circuit diagram of how it's connected in there. And so what it's allowed me to now do is have my Sennheiser radio mic receiver, which is on there now, plugged straight into the microphone socket, or it's the headphone jack, but into the mic port. And so now I'm able to record audio directly on the iPad, which means obviously I've got the freedom to wander around. The audio quality is not going to be inconsistent as I move around. And so, and obviously with the added benefit of I'll be dropping the iPad footage into the timeline as the first default footage. That will set the timeline to the same frames per second as the iPad. And therefore we won't get that problem with the synchronization of the audio getting out of sync over time. So they're the two main things for today. Continuity, super important, and things like frames per second when you're mix matching footage from different sources, you have to watch out with the frames per second, because it can really catch you out, as it did me, because I assumed, never assume, you know what they say about assume, make an ass out of you and me and all that. I'd assumed that the iPad 30p was the same as the Sony EX1 30p, and that is the industry standard with the drop frame NTSC, which is the 29.97. So, you know, my bad. But like I say, I fixed it, but it was an unnecessary move, which now, hopefully today, with what we've got going on, I can use this setup for, you know, other behind the scenes and other perhaps uses for my iPad in the future. and I get the benefit of using the proper mics. So all important stuff. We're going to get straight into it. As I mentioned, we've got the Logitech C920 Pro, and it's not amazing, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit record. So on to the third lesson is clapperboards, right? Someone spotted this in the background on the other one. I was like, what do you need a clapperboard for? And it is exactly because I was recording the video on the iPad and the audio on the Sony. And so what it means is that the clapperboard allows you to synchronize the video and the audio. And so the idea being is on the actual, this camera for example, as long as we get this in shot, yeah, and as long as you can see it as well, as it closes, what I end up with is a nice spike on the audio line, waveform. You see the classic spike from that sound, and you can then see the same spike from the microphone on here, or you can line it up with each frame as it touches, synchronize that with the spike in the audio file. Hey presto, you've synced yourself up. Yeah, it's very easy to do that then. And so that's the idea of that. I'll need to do that today as well. So I thought, rather than doing that beforehand and making it look all smooth, I thought, you know what, let's just make a thing of it. There's a lot of people who don't know what a clapperboard's for, and I didn't realise that people didn't realise what it was for. So for those who already know, bear with me. But so yeah, that's the plan. So what I'll need to do is hit record on here, and then she'll be rolling. And now we can sync up the camera, make sure we get that in shot. You'll be able to see that as well. Take one. And we're rolling. And so now, after we're all done and we've done our stuff, we'll be able to just line that up on the timeline, synchronize up those audio spikes in the waveform, and we're good to go. Now, on to the actual video shoot that we've got to do. Heads up, I've had word, this is why my wife's brilliant like this, she's pretty good at planning herself, but anyway, she gave me the heads up and said that it was actually looking like it was going to be some pretty heavy rain later on this evening, tonight, probably about 4 o'clock in the morning. Now that's a problem for me because the roof on my studio here is like a galvanised steel roof. It's actually like a Faraday cage. You don't get much signal in here, put it that way, because it's like galvanised steel nearly all the way around. So anyway, the problem with that is that when it rains, the noise is quite epic. And so as a result of that, I have to sort of plan ahead in terms of when I'm going to be doing certain types of filming. Now, of course, things like this, where we've got we're just doing video here, we're not going to be using the audio track for the work we're going to do today, just getting this B-roll footage of the alien face, which is what we're doing. The Alienware face in the different colours, and I'll do some sort of a bum, in part of the segment for part 3 of the Alienware Area 51M review. So, while we're doing that, I need to be getting the camera set up so that we're obviously in frame. We need to be making sure the lighting is going to be okay. The white balance is important as well, because I'm trying to show the different colours of the alien face. Now, a lot of the time you would say one of the options is to do it in post-production, right? And so what you would do is, for example, you would get a shot of the alien face in red, like it's set up now, and you can then bring it into your NLE, your editing program, and you can apply a change color effect, or you can change the hue and things like this. Now, I did a bit of a test roll to do that, and I didn't really like the results at all. It looked fake, and I'd spend an awful amount of time trying to reproduce that in post-production. In situations like that, it's actually easier to just do it in real life. And in fact, other jobs I've done, it's been easier to just model it in 3D than it has to do it in real life. So you've got to know, what you're doing for what, and what's going to sort of suit your workflow better, and obviously get you the same result at the end, the best result in the end. So, as I say, one option is to just shoot the one alien face in red, and then change the hue color on it. But for today, I tried that, didn't like it. And so what I'll be doing is literally flicking through the colours, and what I need to do as well, because I actually did a shoot earlier on in the day on the infinity loop, or in fact they call it the Tron, don't they? Yeah, see, on the Alien FX software they call this light bar at the back where the rear of the Area 51M is called the Tron light. And so I was doing a shot of that, kind of like framed up, where we had the loop in there in a nice colour. And because I didn't want to have my display port kicking out the back, I removed that. Now what that meant was that then the only way I could actually scroll through the different colours of the RGB lights was to obviously have access to control the Alien FX software. So the problem was, because I didn't have the other displays in there, I couldn't see what I was doing. And so I had to come round, and I was sort of like changing the, looking at the screen here, trying to change the actual colour of the LED lights. And every time I was doing that, and I would stand back basically and then just give it a second or two looking at it, and then I'd come in and I'd change it again, and then I'd get out of the way. Problem is that because my floor is a little bit, it's not squidgy, but it's kind of, if I stand here and move my weight around, when you've got the camera that needs to be as precisely set up as this, centered, zoomed in, don't forget, when you're zoomed into objects, you're amplifying any movement in the camera as well, right? And you're also losing various stops of light. And so it's important that you know what you're doing when you're using sort of large extensive zoom, because you're going to be amplifying every move, every jog, every squidge of the floor, yeah. And so what I found was there would have been no way that I could have just stitched that together and gone bum 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 bum, changing colour, which is what my plan was, because it would just be moving all over the place. And I can pull that into After Effects, Adobe After Effects. I can use sort of tracking software to straighten that up. And come on guys, it's just not worth the time. You might as well just do it properly. So for the alien face, I don't have the same problem, because I can use the display port coming out of the back, because it won't be in shot. It means that now I can use the displays, and as long as I stay dead still like this and I don't move, because even me moving like this is going to change the way the ambient light is placed on the rear of the display on the Alienware. And so there's all these things that may seem like small things, but when you get into the edit later on, you'll be like, oh man, look at that. It's like the background's looking a little bit brighter than it was on the other shot, just because you happen to be standing here rather than there. Really is just as sensitive as that. So I'm going to be redoing it, and I've got it set up slightly differently. I think I'm a bit happier with how we are now. You'll see here I've got an external display, which I sometimes use if I have to do things where I can't be seeing this small display, then I can see the display here, which is a slightly bigger screen. It's like a 10-inch screen. So that's just coming from the AV output from the Sony EX1, and it just literally shows the same as it shows on the actual built-in viewfinder. The only difference is it doesn't put the guide bars on it, but it's fine. So that's the plan, and I'm going to need to get this into macro mode so we can get real nice and close. Now I'm going to hit record on this camera now, and so I'll be able to cut to a few clips that you'll see me doing on here as well, and then I'll be able to scroll through. So first thing we need to do, and let's bear in mind, there is nothing about this camera that's automatic. Everything's manual. I mean, there is an automatic, but to be honest, if you're buying a camera like this and you're putting things on automatic, you've bought the wrong camera, right? I mean, that's, there's sort of beginner cameras out there that you can do it all for you, but this is kind of, gives you absolute control over every element. So what I'm going to need to do, I can't actually focus this camera at this distance. It's way too close to the screen, but there is a feature to flick it into macro mode, and so that's what we'll do. And then we need to, this is the focus ring here, and the focus ring needs to be snapped forwards into autofocus mode, and that allows you to control the macro, and you'll see I'm tuning it in there, but it's not quite close enough, so we're going to zoom in a bit, and you'll see suddenly it blows out straight out of focus, look. And this is where we get into the absolute extents of where we can focus. And of course I want to fill this screen with that alien face as much as I can. It doesn't even matter how big I'm going to have it in the final edit, because of course don't forget the background's kind of black, yeah, and so I can fill the background with black and sort of expand or decrease the size of the alien face accordingly. I'm just getting this totally dialed in and focused, and I'm using here the expanded focus button, which basically zooms it in 100%, doubles the size of it, so I can get really precise on that focus. And again, measure twice, cut once. I always do just a double check. Now if you're doing this on a person, you're dialing your focus in. What you would use is what you call a Siemens star, and that's actually what you see behind me here. Actually, I did mean to take this down because I felt like it's quite a distracting image, isn't it? But it's designed to be. It's very distracting to a camera's lens as well. But this allows you to get real tight focus and set it up, and you'll see straight away when it's out of focus because it sort of blurs straight out and it goes nice and crisp. So that's a Siemens star, and I've got a small one as well that I tend to use more frequently. This is the one that I use if I'm calibrating the back focus on the camera. I'll perhaps get into that in another video. It's important stuff because I actually lost quite a lot of footage. Anyone who's familiar with my bushcraft video, I went on a wild camp. We have our bushcraft weekends we do every year, and I took the camera along with me last year. Had a great laugh. Got the catapult out, you know, and the slingshot and stuff like that. But anyway, on that video shoot, I was pretty devastated because when I got back home and I got into the edit, because of course it looks all right, yeah. When you're checking stuff out on the actual viewfinder, it's like, you know, what is it? I don't know, 3-4 inch screen or something like that. Yeah, it's a pretty good, you know, it's a beautiful quality viewfinder on the Sony EX1, but sort of anything looks good on that, yeah. When you get it on a big full HD sort of 27 or whatever inch monitor, you see the imperfections. And I realised when I got back that all of the shots that I'd done that were wide focus, you know, zoom right out essentially, completely out of focus, just soft as hell. And I was like, oh man, all the ones that were in nice and tight, you know, nice sort of zoomed in shots, crisp as anything, right? But all the ones that were zoomed right out. So I lost about 6 or 7 really nice clips out of that because I hadn't calibrated the back focus. So my bad, you know, you should always do it before you go out. Again, it's that assumption thing again. So Siemens star, I keep that now. Actually, my friend Ollie, who ironically is featured in the bushcraft video, he's the one who carves the wooden spoon, yeah, out of a log. He made me this at work because he works at a label sort of signs manufacturers, and so I sent him the design for it, and this is proper plastic, and this has been done in a special waterproof ink, so it's sort of weatherproof. And I had it designed, I sent him the design based on fitting in my camera case, yeah. So I made a special slot in the back there, look, and it goes in my Pelican case, yeah. It's basically industry standard for photography, video equipment. So yeah, I had it designed, I designed it in a way so it could just slip in the back there. No excuses then, right? Doesn't matter where I am, I can slip that out, I can do the back focus and use it. So, but if I'm doing little shots close up or something like that, because it's only me in here, you know, when I've got the shots where I'm sort of sitting here in a chair, what I'll generally do, and my red cross is here where the camera normally goes, is if I know I'm going to be sitting here, yeah, I'll kind of pop that like that, the Siemens star, and then I can reach the camera, I can adjust the camera, and I can get it bang on, so that when I then sit down, you know, it's in focus. Now, that's usually why you'd want to have a couple of people helping you, right? You know, if you had someone with the camera, you know, you just get the guy to sit there and you can zoom right in, get real nice and focused, usually on the eyelashes is where you'd go for. Get real nice crisp focus on that and you're good to go. Right, so let's get on with it. Got the alien face in view there. It's looking pretty tidy actually. Doesn't look like it's exactly perfectly square in frame, but it's not too bad. We can straighten that up in post anyway, because the whole surrounding of that alien face seems to be pretty dark, almost black. And I think what I'll do in the edit is in post-production I'll crush the blacks on that, on some curves. On another video I'll talk more about the editing process. Today we'll talk more about the filming and some preparation, things like the continuity. But yeah, what I would do is I'll bring it in, adjust the colours, crush the blacks, and so I can sort of reposition that in the frame quite easily then. So that will be the plan. And so what I'm able to do now is to scroll through these colours, and I'll just be able to keep it recording, and then in the edit I can just cut a few frames out of each colour. Hopefully when we put them together, if I stay dead still as I'm scanning through the colours, then it should be nice and consistent. But I'll show you it at the end anyway. What I'll do is at the end of this video, what we've ended up achieving today between us, I'll share with you at the end how it's going to look. And I'm not sure how I'm going to use it in the part 3 video. I've got a few other shots to get on that anyway over the next sort of day or two, and then maybe a couple of days editing. But ultimately I really want to get that part 3 up there as soon as possible, because there's some great information in it already. I've already done quite a few scenes, and I've done another one of those little cut scenes because everyone seems to like them so much. So I'm just going to kick my shoes off, by the way. That's another thing I always do. Socks. The amount of times, you know, you're squeaking about in your shoes. So what is that? Lesson 5 now. Socks. Right. So anyway, let's get into it. Andy, come on, stop messing about. Right, so we've got it all set up. Bum. We're all rocking and rolling. So basically all we need to do is I need to keep dead still, and I need to scroll through these colours. Oh, I'll tell you what as well. Classic mistakes you see again. Planning. You know, the 6 Ps, proper planning prevents piss poor performance. Well, one I like actually is, do you know, it wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. Love it. Anyway, key was when you know, I said about doing the Tron loop, because I love that. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a really beautiful feature of the A51M. If I had designed it, that's exactly how I would have designed it. That's, you know, that's saying something. So that loop, I'd actually done that already. Yeah, I'd actually filmed it already. And it was like, I got to the end and I moved the camera because I thought I was done, and realised in the edit that I never actually got it in white. And I was like, oh man. And also I decided after that I would actually show it doing the spectrum cycle, where you can set it on spectrum in the Alien FX, and you know, it just cycles through you know, the rainbow. You know, it's kind of cool. I wouldn't be able to reproduce that by cycling through. It will just be bub. So what I needed to do really is to, when I reshoot that, is I need to make sure, A, I make sure I've got all the colours and white, and B, you know, make sure that I get the spectrum in there as well before I go moving the camera, because there is no way you're getting that camera back in place on a shot like that. So right, let's rock and roll. What have we got? Let's start off with white. And the reason I'll start off with white is because when I'm in the edit, of course, this is just my thinking here out loud. This has been recording the whole time so that I've been able to cut to shots of it in the edit later on, right? And I know that that's been running for quite a while, so I know it's going to take me quite a while later on in the edit to actually find the point where I start going through it. So by starting off at white, and I talk about white, ingrains it in my memory. Later in the edit, I can scribe white, and I found it, and we're good to go. So we're going to start with white, and I'm going to choose a position. I might actually kneel down here. Let's have a look. See, look, even me kneeling like this, I can already see that reticle on the screen moving around. So I need to be really still. And it looks like the lighting's all right. Doesn't look like it's going to be too bright. And if it's too bright, you see, I'm going to start losing the saturation of the colour. If you go too, you know, if you start overexposing, you're going to start losing the saturation. And of course this is all about the colour, so super important. So right, here we go. Start with blue. Let's see if I can not, yeah, see that's moving it as well, look. I see. Another thing to watch out for, look, when just literally me applying a bit of pressure on this keyboard tray, seems to be moving very, very slightly, but it seems to be moving this entire kind of thing. The camera is actually very still, but it's the desk just slightly. Got to watch out for this stuff, so I'm gonna have to be really gentle. It might even be worth, no, I think we'll be all right. Okay, here we go. Blue, slightly lighter blue. Even lighter blue, this is actually more like Andology blue. Green, slightly more of a green, yellowy green, yellow, orange, red, pink, pinky purple. I'm guessing that's supposed to be violet or purple. Black to blue. We'll go white. Ooh, I nearly forgot then, and we need to do the spectrum. Is it doing it? Look, I don't even move my head to look. Yeah, that's looking alright, isn't it? We'll let it run for a bit. What I'll do is I'll move this over to slow, sorry. That looks fast to me. Let's move it the other way. That's slower, look. That's unusual. Oh, it's because it's duration high. So we'll leave that to run as well. Scrolling through the colours a little bit slower. And of course it's, with things like this, you see, it tends to be more for the reasons that you can't think of than for the reasons that you can. Because as I said before, I think we were right on that actually. As I said before, you once you move the camera, you know, that's it, you're kind of committed. And that's the end of the shoot, whether you wanted it to be or not. So let's go back to white, and then that'll be my symbol for it's a wrap. And do you know what? Do you know what that's a wrap even stands for? See, again, I assume everyone knows what a clapperboard's for, and I get people saying, what do you need a clapperboard for? A wrap is what they used to say, wind, reel, and print. Yeah, so when you get to the end of the movie, you're ready to wind the tapes, yeah, reel them in and print them. Wrap. So, yeah. And then at the end of your movie, you go and have a wrap party and everyone gets drunk and, you know, laughs about all the scenes they got wrong and stuff like that. So, yeah, wrap party. And so that is a wrap. And so I guess, what we got now? I think that's about it, isn't it? So I guess all I've got to do now is, before the rains come, I need to set the desk up in a completely different way and yeah, move things around. In fact, no, before I do that, yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to reshoot I'll set it back up, so I'll reshoot the actual loop. And I'll see what I can do to overcome the problem of not being able to have the display port plugged in, because of course it will be in shot. The way I did it before is I had the power removed, so it was running on batteries, and the network removed, and it was just literally just as a laptop. But like I say, it was just impossible. There's no way I'm getting around there to do that. And I haven't quite figured out another way of being able to see what I'm doing on screen unless I reposition it completely, so that I can be almost kind of like on it. And at least then what I might be able to do, actually, yeah, that's not a bad idea. So I could actually use this, it's like a Logitech wireless mouse. Yeah, I think that'll work. So it's got a little USB jobby. I can slot that in, and then I can be standing back from it, and then I'll be able to, you know, because you're not going to be able to see the little USB thing sticking out the side from the angle that I'll have with the Tron loop. So I'll be able to sort of be standing back from it, but be able to see the screen, and I'll be able to change the colours without touching it, without moving to change the light on it and things like that. So I think that's perhaps how I do that. But yeah, in the meantime, I really appreciate you joining me. I do hope that I've been useful to you. You know, like I say, I've got lots of these planned to come up in terms of quite a few subjects over this. You know, we need to get into some editing as well. But I'll pop at the end some of the footage that we've got today, so you can see how it looks. And of course, when the Alienware Area 51M review part 3 comes out, which, like I say, as soon as possible, next few days, once I've had time to edit it. And it kind of depends what happens to the rain. If the rain's really bad, and I might get rained off. But again, you know, it's about planning and it's about sort of contingencies, you know. So I've got sort of like a mental reverse chess match going on in my head, in terms of what I can do that doesn't require audio while it's raining, and I can shoot those scenes then, and then plan it accordingly. But of course, it sometimes means shooting scenes first that are going to be scenes last, and shooting the scenes last that are going to be first, and it can get complicated. So again, big key here is planning. Yeah, it's very difficult if you just think you can just hit record and just wing it. I mean, yeah, I do these like that. Yeah, I wing it because I want it to be natural and I want it to be a single take, no cuts, so you can see the exact process that I go through. But you know, typically if you're doing something of any value with, you know, an actual tutorial, you know, a formal tutorial, yeah, you know, it does require a bit of planning, and so just start off with a list, and then it will become second nature. But I really hope you've got something out of this. It's I enjoy this, the behind the scenes. I think it's you know, YouTube's a big thing. A lot of people are trying to grow their channel. A lot of people are sort of trying to find out more about how to make better videos. And as you can see, you know, it's not like a massive budget. I make do with things like, you know, these light panels cost me about £15–20 each. They're velcroed to the ceiling so I can remove them and move them around whenever I want. I've got things like reflector discs rather than loads of lights, and you know, you'll be surprised what you can get away with. So I'll do another video about sort of being able to put these sorts of videos together on a budget. A lot of the things that you can do DIY, and a lot of the cameras that you can use in creative ways. So I'm really, you know, really looking forward to bringing more of that kind of content to you. And it certainly seems like that's in demand from the comments that I've had, and even personal emails and Twitter messages all asking me to show more. So I really hope this has been a good introduction to the sort of how I set up a shoot, and the things I think about, the things I have to watch out for, and stuff like that. So I hope you're looking forward to the part 3 Area 51M review as much as I am. This video and that video and the last part 2 video were all edited and rendered on my Area 51M exclusively. You know, just to tell you now, I'm super happy with it. I'm really pleased, and everything's going absolutely squeaky fine. So really happy about that. There are still a few bugs that I am going to get into in part 3. It was just unfortunate the way it worked out at part 2. I did a poll. I did a poll on the community tab, and so thank you very much to everybody who's entered in that. I'll have a bit more of a thank you to you guys in the actual part 3 video, you know, that's relevant to that. But I did a poll, and it turns out sort of 30-minute videos is about what people are actually more looking for, which was a bit of a surprise to me. I was thinking it was going to be less than that. I'm quite happy to just babble on for an hour, but I know people aren't happy to listen for an hour. And so that's why I wanted to cut that one down as part 2. We'll be continuing where we left off in part 3, plus all the new stuff. We've got the boot sequence, we've got the fans, we've got the FX, we've got a little bit of gaming sneak peek as well. And I'll be getting more into that in part 4. So thank you very much for joining me. I've had a great time. I hope you've enjoyed it too. Anything you want to know more about, put them in the comments. Please give this video a like, because it really helps me out, especially as I'm really looking to grow this channel at the moment. So any support you can offer me, share the video, and you know, I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the comments, and next video, part 3, Area 51M. Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you for joining me for this part of the video where we get into more of the editing, and I've got here in Adobe Premiere Pro, which is my choice of NLE, non-linear editing program, and 2019 version. This is the timeline down here, where you've got the video clips, and then the bottom half here, these are all the audio components. Yeah, so audio at the bottom half, and video, graphics, and various effect layers on the top. Now, the reason I'm showing you this, here's the turd scene, the classic cheesy turd scene. You might have noticed throughout this video there's various effects, and I've kind of done that on purpose because just to give you the heads up, what I'm planning to do is on my next behind the scenes, I'll be actually doing a behind the scenes of the behind the scenes. And so what we'll be looking at more is the editing side of the project and the process. And so obviously this one we've talked about the filming and things, and I felt like this was a good one to use as a case study for the behind the scenes in the future for editing, because it, I purposefully included quite a few elements. So we've got things like several different cameras to cut to, so that's a good thing to illustrate. We've got things like the clock effect here, isolating a component and animating it. We've got things like this whole rewind segment effect, which I'll break down for you as well. Things like the sound effects, and also various other bits in the video that I've purposely kind of put in there again because I want an excuse really to, we've got things like time lapse, yeah. So I've tried to cover as many techniques as possible in this video so that it gives us an opportunity to break it down when we look more at editing, yeah. And so I've kind of put these in. I hope you noticed them, and if not, you can go back and see if you can spot them all. But as I say, in the next behind the scenes, this will be what we'll be looking at, is breaking down how I put this kind of a video together, and how I'm doing certain techniques. It should be interesting for those of you interested in learning a little bit more about editing. So yeah, that's the plan coming up. So yeah, keep tuned for that, and we'll get onto the alien face now, the footage that we've just got today, and we'll cut that up briefly and show you sort of roughly what we do. But as I say, we'll get more into the editing in the next behind the scenes. But yeah, so thank you very much for making it this far in the video. I do appreciate it, because you have, this one's especially for you. Here we are then with the new project for Adobe Premiere Pro, and we've just pulled in the video footage here from the Sony EX1, and so we'll drag that into the timeline, which will create us a new track here, look, and you'll see there's the audio and the video, and of course we don't need the audio, we're just going to be doing the visuals. So we'll just select that, right click, unlink. I can remove this audio track then, and we can rearrange these windows to give us a bit more room where we need it, and increase the layer height for this video sequence. And so here we go, this is the one we did on the Sony EX1. So we're going to zoom out on the timeline, and then we need to scrub along until we see white. There we go, boom, that was easy. I'm going to drag this up here just to get rid of all that nonsense at the beginning. Look at that jogging about, look, as I scrub through the time. Look at the colours, bang on, dead still, look, that's what we like to see. So that's what I was talking about. If it had been jogging around like that while we were doing the colours, which is kind of how it was, when I tried doing the Tron light, that was kind of what it was doing. So let's get it to where we stop, and steady, boom. It's about there. So again, C gives me the razor tool. We'll get rid of that. Move it down here. So we've got white, blue, and then there's all the colours there. So what we're going to do, I'll zoom in a bit more to the timeline so we can be a bit more precise as to where we are. Now we only need a short segment of each of these for what we need them for. Give us a little bit more length on that. Bit of movement on the very beginning, so I'll maybe come to here. Okay, and what we're going to do, get to the next colour. When it changes, we're going to throw a cut in there. We'll pull that away, and I'll just take off the tailing end of that, and then we'll be left with this. Now it doesn't matter that it's only short, because we can make that as long as we want. If we wanted to, we can just right click that and go onto frame hold options, and then basically you can make this as long as you want then, and it will just be a static frame, which we can do because it's just there's nothing moving in it, so that's cool, but that's optional. We should have enough footage here anyway to do it live. We've got the next colour here, we'll throw in a cut as soon as it changes to the next colour. Again, we'll move that back, and we'll just reduce that down, so we should just have that one segment of colour. And I'll just carry on doing that for all of these colours until we've got everything as it needs to be. And so what we'll do now is just straighten these up, and we'll run the timeline through and make sure it's looking nice and straight and level. It doesn't really matter that we haven't got exactly the right time length on each of these segments because of the way we'll use it, but this is just to illustrate the kind of workflow process really. You know, bringing the clips in, chopping them up, and then what we'll do now is we'll just enhance the colours. We'll zoom in. There we go, and there's all the colours. Look, so let's just make sure white. Beautiful. Look at that, perfect, doesn't even move. Okay, so what we're going to do now is apply some colour grading, and I like to use Magic Bullet Looks, which is here. Drag that onto that clip. And Magic Bullet Looks is a plugin. It's not free, it's not cheap, but it is professional grade and I do get great results from it. So this is kind of how I use it for this. I would use a curves tool, and we can use this sort of graph thing here if we want, or we can just use the numbers, and so I kind of use a combination. But let's have a look. So first, oh look, so we've got a bit of dust or something going on here, and if we crush the blacks, means reducing the light in the shadows. Look, yeah, if we increase the shadow light, look at that, yeah. So by decreasing it, we can remove all these imperfections in the dark background, yeah, without losing the sort of overall detail of the image. And the midtones will give us a little bit more saturation. Look, it's looking good, and the highlights should actually accentuate that. Look, see, maybe about there. I think we can bring those shadows down a little bit more. Maybe even bring the midtones down. Look at that, it's looking pretty vibrant already, yeah. And you can see we've still kept this detail of the specular highlight on the rim, and you can see there's a little bit of a bevel down here as well. And then what we would do is maybe add a bit more saturation to the color. You don't want to overcook it though, because you'll just look, that will just look fake. And so if we just come to about 105%, just a small amount, 104. That's looking alright. We still get this gradient blend here where the fill colour's a little bit lighter here than here. It means we're not losing the detail. We've still got this specular highlight rim. And I think what we'll do is we'll throw in a D-flare. You can just see here, look, you can see this sort of like faded red in there. And a D-flare will get rid of that. So lens, D-flare, boom. And look at that. I'll turn it on and off for you. Off, on. Yeah, it just cleans these lines up. Look, lovely, yeah. Again, maintaining that detail. And if we wanted to have a little bit of a diffusion look, you know, like a glowy effect, then we would apply something anyway with more control, something like a diffusion look. And again, we can adjust the glow level on that and the size and of the actual glow itself, and whether it's only the highlights that are sort of glowing, whether it's all over, you know, and create the effect that you want with that. But for what we're doing today, I think that's looking pretty good, just like that, nice and clean. So we'll finish that. There we go. And let's do it on and off, and you can see what we've done. Beautiful. And so what we'll do then is just select that looks effect, and we'll copy it, and then I'll just go along and apply it to each of these in turn. And you'll notice here the timeline here is going red, and that's just to suggest that this area here needs to be rendered by the processor. And you know, all these effects that we're applying, you know, they all cost you in terms of processing and rendering, but it's worth doing if you want a nice, you know, get your colors right and get that kind of contrast. And here we go, look, beautiful. Yeah, at least now I know that when I'm doing the part 3 review of the Area 51M and I'm showing you guys what the area, you know, what the Alien FX colors look like, then I'm being completely accurate. I'm not making it up. You know, I said before that you can just, you know, sort of cheat in post-production. I'll illustrate that now. If we go back into this looks tool, and as well as a saturation, we can apply a hue saturation filter. That will be here. And we can actually change the hue, look, and it should keep the detail. Look, it does keep somewhat the kind of specular highlights and the detail of the actual original image, but it just feels a little bit kind of fake. It's quite effective, but particularly with this new shot that I did. I'm much happier with the framing and with the lighting. So, but you know, again, this is for me is more about when I'm, oops, sorry, let's remove that. When I'm actually doing the review footage, then, you know, I want to be able to select the default colors that are on the Alien FX options and then be able to show you realistically what those colors look like without changing the tone or anything like that. So there we go, and I hope you've enjoyed that. And of course, look out for this segment in the up and coming part 3 of the Area 51M review, and I'll be using this Area 51M now to render this. So let's do that now. I'll set an in point there and I'll set an out point at the end, and if I hit enter, it will render the effects, and you can see this here. This is the Area 51M rendering it in real time. So you can see here where the timeline goes green as it calculates frame by frame all the effects that I've applied with the Magic Bullet Looks filter. And so this is what I mean about, you know, just literally to render this. This is an i9, by the way. The fans have just started speeding up on the Area 51M as a result of this rendering I'm asking it to do. But this is exactly why I've got the i9 processor in here, because this is making light work of this. That's kind of, you know, quite a lot of processing going on here with those filters I've applied. So you can imagine on this video you're watching now, you know, more than 50 minutes long, how long it's taken to render the whole thing at the end. And here we are. This is the final rendered. Let's move this away so we can get it in full size. Scrolling through the colors. And like I say, in the final one, we'll use this slightly differently, so look out for it and see if you can find out where it is. And in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed today. We've covered quite a few things, so I appreciate your patience of getting to the end. But yeah, any comments, any questions, please, you know, comments below. I'm always in there chatting to you, so anything you want to see, anything you want to know, let me know, and I'll be there for you to put a video together, perhaps as a tutorial. But in the meantime, I thought I'd give you a quick taster of my editing environment. And like I say, in the upcoming behind the scenes video, the next one will be entirely editing, showing you how I put together that last video we've just watched. So in the meantime, thank you very much for joining me, and I do look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Please like, share and subscribe.